Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Geetam Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantrastasya Namani Yani Karmapyekam Tasya Devasya Seva. Today we are doing shlokas 14 to 17 of chapter 5. We have already reached up to shloka number 13 by the end of the last session. Today we will focus on jnana, spiritual knowledge, and the pure truth. That's how I've titled this session. So in the last session, we spoke about kartritvam or kartatvam, that is the doership of the jivatma. If you recollect, we said things like the person who is doing karma yoga, to purify himself, he should contemplate as he is doing his different activities that he is not the doer of anything. The senses are engaged with their objects. That's all. There are different agents of action, and those are the ones that are causing action to happen. He's not the doer. One of those agents is the Paramatma himself. So today we will continue to discuss along those lines, and we'll see how the responsibility for action lies with the Jivatma itself, not with anyone else. Why is that so? We'll ask that question and find the answer to that. So this was the shloka of the last session, the last shloka of the last session. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya aste sukham vashi navadware pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayanna. So in his own mind, he renounces all the action, means that he places all action as being done by something other than himself. Sanyasya, he renounces the fruits to all action and places it in Brahman. And then he becomes peaceful. He becomes very happy and resides in the city of 9 gates, which is his body, and realizing that he is neither the doer nor making someone else do action, nor the karaita, the cause of others' doership. Today, the 14th shloka, na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu na karmaphala sanyogam svabhavastu pravartate. So one question that immediately comes is, okay, if the jivatma is not the doer and the Paramatma is the doer, all right, then isn't the Paramatma responsible for all the action that happens? Okay, the Jivatma is doing punya and papa. Because you said Jivatma is not the doer, that means the Paramatma should be held responsible for the punya and papa of the Jivatma. So the answer to that question is no. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu. We take the word prabhu to refer to that Paramatma. The Paramatma is not responsible. He is not he's not creating. Srijati means creates. Na srijati. The kartritvam, the doership of the jivatma, the Prabhu, Paramatma, does not create. Na karmani, nor does he actually create those activities. Na karmaphala sanyogam, the attachment, the association with the fruits of the activities, the attachment to the fruits, the asakti, that also the Paramatma doesn't create. Okay. Then what creates? Svabhavastu pravartate. It's the svabhava of the jivatma that should be held responsible, which means the jivatma is responsible. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Napi tat kartavyattvena karmanyapi nacha karma phala bhogai sanyogamapi kintu jivasya svabhavaha. What is svabhavaha? Anadi avidya eva pravartate. Tam jivam kartritvadi abhimanam arohayitum iti bhavaha. So this svabhava, so you see in our philosophy, in Vedanta philosophy and Hindu knowledge in general, we start everything on the fundamental understanding that there is no beginning to time. Time does not have a beginning or did not have a beginning. It's minus infinity. Okay, in mathematics, the concept of minus infinity, there is no starting point. There's no zero. There's no t equal to zero. So this is something that is the reason why when Westerners try to interpret our philosophy, for example, they say that the Veda was written in 1500 BC. Then another Western scholar will dispute with that, no, it was written in 3000 BC. Another guy will come and say 4500 BC. So they dispute with each other, finding some evidence here and there, what they call evidence. And, they make their career on doing all these kind of things. But the Veda clearly says that it's apaurusheya, means it's not written by any human being or any living being. And it is also anadi, means it has no beginning at all. So just like the Veda has no beginning, the Jivatma has no beginning. The Jivatma's karma has no beginning. The Jivatma's vasanas have no beginning. They have always been there. But they can have an ending. The karma, the vasana, the material svabha that we are talking about now, can potentially have an ending, potentially has an ending. It can be ended by the practice of yoga. And then the Jivatma enters into a state of ananta, means that his existence becomes nitya. Okay. So here, the idea of being told is that, yes, even the Jivatma is not the doer, but that doesn't mean the Paramatma is the doer, though the Paramatma is in the basis for everything. Even though the Paramatma is basis for everything, he is not responsible for the actions that the Jivatma performs, simply because the reason why those things are happening is the Jivatma svabhava itself. And that is the anadi, beginninglessness, the Jivatma's nature, material nature, which is coming from his ichha and dvesha, his own vasanas, his own desires, tendencies. Those are the ones that are causing all these actions to happen. Okay, the Paramatma may be only a fundamental basis for those actions to happen, but he's not responsible. Now, Baladev Vidyabhushana offers a slightly different explanation. He takes the word Prabhu to mean the Jivatma itself. And then he says that Etadvayam Shuddhasya Nasti iti Vishadayati. So he says this basically, the shloka is also pointing out that for the Shuddha Jiva, these things don't exist anyway. Etadvayam, that is Kartritvam and Karmani. So the previous shloka said, if you see the previous shloka, he says, Naiva Kurvan na Karayan. Neither Kurvan means doing, na Karayan, making others do. Okay, so these don't exist in the pure Jivatma. Etadvayam Shuddhasya Nasti iti Vishadayati na iti. So he says that here, Sri Bhagavan in the 14th shloka is only elaborating on what he said in the 13th shloka, that the Jivatma is neither the doer nor does he make others be the doer. Prabhu, the word Prabhu is Dehendriyadinam Swami, Jiva. So the Jivatma is residing in the material body. So he's Deha Indriyadinam Swami. He's the master of his body and his senses. And such a person, lokasya, janasya, means of the people in general, kartritvam na srijati. He's not responsible for the doership of the others around him. Tvam kuru iti, karayita iti na bhavati. He's not making them do things. So he is not the karayita. He's not making them do. He's not the doer. Napi tasya ipsita tamani karmani malyambaradini srijati iti swayam karta api na bhavati. So he's not making them the doer. He is himself not the doer. Nacha karma phalena sukhena dukkhena cha sanyogam sambandham srijati bhojayita bhokta cha na bhavati ityartaha. So karma phala sanyogam, the contact association with the fruits of his activities. Sukhena dukkhena cha means during happiness, happy times, or during sad times. Na srijati, he is not the one who is actually creating them. He is neither the bhojayita, making other people enjoy, or bhokta, himself the enjoyer, experiencer. Bhavati ityate. Yadyevam tarhi ka karayana kurvamscha pratiyate. What is the actual agent of these things? Tatraha svabhavastu iti. Anadi pravritta pradhana vasanatra svabhava shabdena ukta pradhanadika dehadiman jiva karayita karta cha iti. So because of his conditioning by anadikala, from beginningless time, pradhanadika. This word pradhana used here refers to the original source of matter. If you see Vedanta philosophy and also Sankhya philosophy, Sankhya darshan, the source of material nature. So matter, we say, is made of the Panchabhutas, Bhumi, Apaha, Anal, Vayu, Kham, right? Earth, water, air, fire, and ether. So there's a process described in, for example, Bhagavatam, and similarly in the Sankhya Shastra, how this matter is formed. Okay, like in the Western science, we have Big Bang theory, some explosion happened, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then finally today we have all these elements in the periodic table and all that. So like that in Vedanta also, there is a whole process given of how it started. So one of the first elements is that primordial, mass, which is the source of all matter. And that is called Pradhana. That is the beginningless thing that existed, always existed. And that's the first point of material creation. Material creation comes from Vishnu's body. That's the understanding. And in that, the first basis is this. Pradhana Vasanatra. So the Vasana begins from there, of the Jivatma. And that Vasana continues over the lifetimes of the Jivatma. Okay, as the Jivatma goes through unlimited number of lifetimes, that Vasana just accumulates. It's a cumulative effect, right? So as students of management, as students doing doctoral work studies, so we all know what the word cumulative means, as it carries forward from one time period to another time period. Anadi pravritta pradhana vasanatra svabha shabdena ukta pradhanika dehadiman. So this, because of this vasana accumulating over time, or time periods, and each, you can say, for example, each birth is a time period. The Jivatma goes through birth after birth after birth, different time periods. And in each time period experiences a set of vasanas. And that causes that abhiman. Okay, I am so and so, I am Ajit, I am this, I am that. So this is what this complex accumulation of that makes the jiva that karayita and karta. So with that abhiman, the jiva does different things. And as he does it with that abhiman, that jivatma is given punya and papa. These two, punya and papa, stick to that jivatma because of that abhiman. Okay. So when does the jiva becomes free from it? When he is able to discard that abhiman completely and realize that I am not all that. I am just a pure jivatma. That is Vedanta philosophy. So therefore, from both the commentaries, so Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Prabhu, Paramatma is not responsible. Shri Baladev Vidyabhushana says it's not about talking about Paramatma's being responsible or not. It's just talking about the Jivatma's reason why he is facing all this. And actually he is not responsible, but because of his abhiman, he becomes responsible. And either way you look at it, the point is that purity is what frees one from their material existence. The Supreme Being is the genesis of neither living being's sense of doership, nor his activities, nor his attachment to the fruits of those activities. Rather, these result from the living being's own material orientation, svabha. The word svabha, bhav means existence. And svabha, one translation of svabha is those vasanas or tendencies, or that particular material orientation with which we are born in a particular birth, what we take at birth. Okay, so from birth to birth, we begin at some point in that birth, and that is the accumulation of all the past births. So that is called svabha of that birth, right? And svabha changes as we go from one birth to other birth, depending on what we have done. Nadatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantava. So logically, continuing from there, na adatte, na grinhati. Adatte means not accept. Adatte means accept. Na adatte, does not accept. Kasyachit papam, no one's papa. Na chaiva sukritam, nor the punya. Neither accepts the papa nor the punya. Who? Vibhuhu. Now this word vibhu definitely refers to that Supreme Being. Okay. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. By ajnana, jnana is covered. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. The jivatma, pure jivatma, naturally has jnana in him, knowledge, pure knowledge in him. But avidya or ajnanam has covered that jnana. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. Tena ajnanena jantavaha muhyanti. Jantavaha means the living beings. Muhyanti means they get deluded. They're completely deluded. Okay, so here Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Yasmat sadhu asadhu karmanam ishvaro na karayita. Because the Ishvara, Sri Bhagavan, is neither the cause of the appropriate activities. Sadhu karma means the good activities. Asadhu karma means the wrong activities, bad activities. So he's neither the creator of the good activities nor the bad activities. Tasmadeva na tasya papa punya bhagitvam. And that's the only reason why, obviously the reason why he is not responsible for the papa or the punya of the jivatma, and therefore he doesn't take a share of that. He takes a share of neither the papa nor the punya of the jivatma. Nadatte na granhati. Kintu tadiya khalu ya shaktihi. But his shakti avidya. Avidya also ultimately is a shakti from Bhagavan only. Because everything that exists ultimately is a part of Bhagavan only. Kintu tadiya khalu ya shaktihi avidya. Saiva. Saiva means sa eva. Sa eva saiva. Sa eva sa shakti reva. Jiva jnanam avranoti. That jiva's jnana covers. Avranoti. Ityaha. Ajnanena avidyaya. Jnanam jivasya swabhavikam. So here is talking about the most natural jnana of the jiva. When you uncover all the ajnana, the avidya, and the pure jnana is a part of the jiva. And that jnana is what is referred to tena hetuna. Shri Baladeva says vibhuhu aparimita vijnananandaha ananta shakti purnaha. He gives a very nice commentary here. He says vibhuhu, he is also referring to Paramatma only. He says aparimita vijnananandaha. Unlimited. Aparimita means unlimited vijnanananda. He is filled with the happiness, unlimited happiness of self-realization. Paramatma. Ananta Shakti Purna. He is filled with infinite energy. Shaktis. Different types of potencies are present in him. Okay, Ananta means unlimited, unending. And then what else? Swananda. Eka Rasika. Swananda means his own internal Ananda. Swanandaika Rasika. He is completely tasting the bliss of that. Okay, such a person, why will he want to take anything from others? He is fully happy internally. Anyatra udasina. Anyatra, elsewhere, udasina. He is indifferent. He is indifferent whether you give him your papa or punya. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter for him. Such a person is Paramatma. Paramatma. Anadi pradhana vasana nibandham. Now he's talking about the jivatma. Anadi pradhana vasana nibandham. The jivatma is, because of his anadi vasana, his present form has been constructed of. Nibandham means constructed out of that anadi vasana. Bubukshu. Bubukshu means a person who is hungry. Okay, so here it means a person who is eager to explore more enjoyment. Every birth we are born, we want to enjoy this, enjoy that, become this, become that. Bubukshu, eager and hungry for enjoyment. Swa sannidhi matra parinita pradhanamaya dehadimantam jivam. That is, just by his presence, the Paramatma's presence, the jivatma goes through different births. Because we said jivatma is not the doer, he doesn't have any potency to do anything. The Paramatma's presence is required to make things happen for the jivatma. Tad vasananusarena karmani karayan. Along, in accordance with the vasana anusarena, karmani karayan, makes the jivatma do the karmas according to his vasanas. Kasyachit jivasya papam sukrisham chana adatte na granhati. So here he points out, yatha sannidhi matrena gandha kshobhaya jayate manasaha na upakartritvat tatha asau parameshwara. This is from the Vishnu Purana. He cites a shloka. He says, just like gandha means smell. Okay, let's take, for example, a good flower or something, or let's say the good smell of this incense. We have lit agarbatti here. Now, just, even without touching it, or you don't have to put it inside your nose, right? Just by being near it, it causes agitation in the mind, agitation in a positive sense. Oh, we are excited, oh, such a nice smell, right? Or if it's a bad smell, we are passing by some garbage dump, then we don't have to put the garbage into the nose, right? Just by passing by in the proximity of the garbage is enough for us to get disturbed. And the garbage does not come inside. That's upakartritva, means it does not act like an instrument. It's just there. Its presence nearby is enough to cause agitation in the mind. Similarly, the Parameshwara, his presence near us is enough to cause all the action to happen. Okay. Sannidhanat yatha akasha kaladhyaha karanam taroho. So another verse in the same Vishnu Purana in a different place. Again, he's citing that verse. There again, it's explained, Sannidhanat yatha, for a taru. Taru means a tree. Yatha akasha kaladhyaha, the sky and the time. Akasha means sky and kala is time. These two elements are highlighted for some reason here. And these are present. Okay, they don't directly do anything to the tree. The tree will have, put water there and maybe somebody will put fertilizer, whatever. But the presence of the sky, the environment, and time, they are, by their presence, the tree keeps transforming. Tathaiva aparinama iva vishwasya Bhagavan Harihi. So the Bhagavan Hari, he doesn't actually do anything. His presence itself causes the parinam happen for the jivatma. Tarhi jivaha vishamam kuto vadanti. Then why do the jivatmas say that Sri Bhagavan is partial? Vishamata means partiality, or you can say injustice, unevenness. Vishamata also means unevenness. Okay, for example, if you're working in an organization and then you find that the boss you're reporting to is more favorable to one employee than another employee, or to you. He's favoring the other employee for promotions or easier jobs and giving you the more difficult jobs always. Then you wonder why this Vishamata is there in that person, right? So here, he says, Bhagavan doesn't have any Vishamata in him. It's only the jiva's karma that is making the jiva go through all of this. Tarhi jivaha tam vishamam kuto vadanti. Because we blame Sri Bhagavan. We say that, my suffering is because of him. I've done everything. I've gone to the temple. I've done everything. And that fellow, he is not going to the temple. He's an atheist. But he got the promotion. He is succeeding in life. Good things happen to him, but bad things are happening to me. So this God I'm worshipping either doesn't exist at all, or exists, but is partial. Doesn't have a sense of impartiality. We accuse Bhagavan, right? Have you seen this happening? It's very common in society. So jivaha tam vishamam kuto vadanti. Why do they do that? Baladeva is raising this question. Tatra aha ajnanena iti. So he says this word ajnana used in the shloka is just to point out that it's because of the jiva's ignorance that he comes to such conclusions. That the Bhagavan is partial, that Bhagavan is unkind. That will also come now. Anadi tad vaimukhyena ajnanena jivanam nityamapi jnanam avritam tirohitam. Since the beginninglessness, since minus infinity, the jiva has been vimukha. He has been opposed to the Ishvara. He's away. His face is looking away from the Ishvara. Vimukha means his face looking away. He's turned his face away from the Ishvara. And because of that, there is ajnana. He's always looking at darkness. So because he's always looking at darkness, he's seeing only darkness. If he's looking at the light, he will see light. But he's not willing to look at light. So because of that darkness, he thinks that the Ishvara doesn't exist, or he exists but is very unfair. Tena hetuna jantavo jivaha muhyanti. Because of that, the jiva remains deluded. Samamapi tam vimudaha vishamam vadanti. Even though the Ishvara, the Paramatma, is samam, is very, very neutral, is completely impartial. But even though he's like that, the vimudaha, the foolish people, they say he is Vishama. He is Vishamaha, means he is partial. He is uneven. He is, what do you say? He is not a disinterested person. He is a partial person. Na Vigyaha. The intelligent people don't do that. Now he says, Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tatparam. It's a beautiful shloka. It says, Jnanena, by knowledge. Okay, let me read the commentaries instead of my explanation. So Vishwanath Chakravarti here says, Yatha avidya tasya jnanam avranoti tathaiva aparatasya vidya shaktihi avidyam vinashya jnanam prakashayati ityarthaha. Just like avidya covers vidya, or ignorance covers knowledge, in the same way, when knowledge becomes more powerful, when the jivatma turns towards knowledge, it will wipe out the ignorance. It's capable of wiping out the ignorance and making the knowledge come out. Jnanena vidyashaktya ajnanam avidyam tesham jivanam jnanameva kartru adityavat aditya prabha yatha andakaram vinashya ghatapapadikam prakashayati. Just like the sun, when the sun rises in the morning, imagine it is pitch dark. Okay? Actually, in the earlier times, before electricity was invented, there was no night lighting at all. Everything was pitch black, right? So some of you who live in villages, you might have experienced pitch darkness. When you go outside on the road, you can't see anything, right? I've also experienced it sometimes. So you just can't see. In the next step, you can't see what's happening. But the sun suddenly rises. And the moment the sun rises, everything is very clear, right? Within a few minutes, everything is very clear. So ghata patadikam, ghata means pot, pata means garment, silk, ghata patadikam, etc. means everything. Prakashayati tathaiva vidya, vidya eva avidyam vinashya. Knowledge only knowledge, avidyam, ignorance, vinashya. Tad jivanishtam jnanam. Jivanishtam jnanam means that jnana is not something that is brought from outside and put into the jiva. It's already present in the jiva. Jivanishtam. It's already there in the jiva. Jivanishtam jnanam param aprakritam prakashayati. So that vidya means here learning, the systematic learning of the shastra, the sadhana that we do along with our learning, that helps us to get that, or that helps us to discover or unearth that jnana which is inside us. Param aprakritam. What is meant by aprakritam? Prakritam means material nature, that which belongs to prakriti, material nature. This is aprakritam. It is non-material. Prakashayati. It reveals. Tena parameshwaro na kamapi badhnati na napi kamapi mochayati. And owing to this, it is not actually the Parameshwara who is either binding somebody to this material world, nor is it the Parameshwara who is actually liberating someone. Kintu jnana ajnane prakritireva dharmaha kramena badhanati mochayati cha. So basically we should understand it is our own realization of knowledge or the absence of that realization which are either liberating us or binding us. Kartritva, bhoktritva tat prayojakatvat tat prayojakattvadayoho bandakaha anasakti shantyadayo mochakascha prakritireva dharmaha. So things like the abhiman of being the doer, the enjoyer, which is the normal consciousness we have. I am the doer. It's because of me that this company transformed. It's because of me that so-and-so succeeded. No, it's because of me. I brought up a family of 3 children, and today those 3 children are in very solid posts. The I, that abhiman. Okay, kartritva and bhoktritva. I am the enjoyer. Okay, this is something that is very innate to us in this material existence. Just like today, you can see in the social media posts. It's very common on Instagram, Facebook, or WhatsApp, whatever it is, or even on those older things like forget some of those things where you sometimes see Orkut. You'll see people posting photos of themselves enjoying, right? It could be anything, eating food or diving into some pool, showing how they're enjoying, right? So there is a abhiman in myself being the enjoyer. The abhiman of being the enjoyer is something that you have to express it to others. If you only enjoyed in the pool and came out, it's not complete.
Yeah.
Its completeness comes only share the photo and others have to like it. Others have to
and be jealous.
And be jealous. Only then the abhiman actually is really fulfilled. But then even then it's not fulfilled because you have to do it again. You'll find after some time somebody else puts a better photo than yours. Right? Then your jealousy becomes more than that person's. Right? So kartritva bhoktritva tat prayojakatvat. Because of these reasons only, bandakaha, we are bound to this existence. Those things bind us again and again. And anasakti shantyadaya, detachment. I don't want that. Okay. Even first of all, I don't want to go to a pool and enjoy like that. But even if I happen to do that sometime, I don't want anyone to talk about it. I don't want to go and share it with everybody and put a photo on it. So this kind of a thinking like that is called anasakti, means detachment, nivritti. So I don't want it. It's not a part of me. Okay. I'll just come. Shantyadaya means then from anasakti comes shanti, complete calmness of mind. Mind becomes disturbed when you do the earlier things, but when you practice detachment, nivritti, the mind becomes calm and they liberate, mochakaha. And they are also prakritireva dharma, means they are also actually prakritireva dharma in the sense they are actually taming the material nature. You're still in the material world only, but you are now in a better situation. Kintu parameshwarasya antaryamitve eva prakritehe te dharmaha udbuddhyante. Now he is pointing out that both of them, you're going and immersing yourself in material enjoyment in some way and building your abhiman, building your material identity, both that and you're coming out of that material identity by detaching yourself, by refraining, practicing detachment, etc. Both of them are possible only because the Parameshwarasya antaryamitve eva prakritehe te dharmaha udbuddhyante. That Paramatma is sitting in our heart, is sitting inside us, is within us. Only because of his proximity, his presence there, these dharmas actually can possibly even happen. Otherwise, they won't even happen. And only because of that, tasya etad iti etad amshenaiva tasya prayojakatvam. Only because of his presence, you can say that he has some role to play. His prayojakatva means he has some role to play. Prayojakaha means one who is initiating something or one who makes something happen. So only in that indirect sense, you can say he has some role to make this happen. Na tasya vaishamya nairghranye. The two things he's saying, vaishamyam. Vaishamyam means partiality. Nairghranyam. Nairghranyam means wickedness or mercilessness, pitilessness, cruelty. So you should never say that God is cruel. Never say that Sri Bhagavan is merciless or cruel or wicked. He's never that. Okay, so that's clearly pointed out here. And Baladeva, slightly different, but along the same lines. Vigyahana muyyanti iti etadaha jnanena iti sarvam jnana plavenaiva. So he's citing earlier shlokas which glorify jnana. Sarvam jnana plavenaiva vijinam santarishyasi. By the boat of jnana, we cross over this wicked ocean of papa. As said in the 4th chapter earlier. Jnanagni sarva karmani. We remember this, all the papa that we do, the karma phala, are burnt to ashes by jnanagni. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. Iti cha ukta mahimna sadguru prasada labdena swaparamatma vishayakena jnanena. Yesham satprasanginam tad vaimukhyam ajnanam nashitam pradvamsitam. Tesham tat jnanam kartriparam prakashayati. So he says, this jnana comes because of the Sadguru Prasad, by the blessings, by the kindness of the Guru, Sadguru. Swaparamatma Vishayakena Jnanena. Two types of jnana. One is swajnana, means one's own knowledge of one's real identity as the self, different from the material body, and knowledge of the Paramatma, the Supreme Being, as being different from oneself and being detached and being a neutral participant in all these things. So knowing all this jnana develops. Satprasanginam, person who is in the association of saintly people. Tad vaimukhyam ajnanam nashitam. His vimukata becomes destroyed. Pradvamsitam. Tesham jnanam kartriparam prakashayati. Dehadehe param jivam vaishamyadi doshat param ishwaram cha bodhayati. Adityavat yatha ravihi udite eva tamo nirasyan yathavat vastu pradarshayati tatha sadguru upadesha labdham atmajnanam yathavat atmavastu iti. So I already explained that. So this atmajnanam is like the sun, reveals everything, reveals the self. Atra vinashta ajnananam jivanam bahutvam nigadata parthasaratina mokshe tesham tad darshitam aupadikatvam tasya prayuktam neme janadipaha iti upakramoktam cha tat sopapattikam abhut. So here, this last sentence of Baladeva's commentary. You see, Baladeva is a Vedanta bhashya, means he's a commentator on the Brahma Sutras also. He's got a Brahma Sutra bhashya called the Govinda bhashya. So for this sampradaya, he wrote, and the Brahma Sutra bhashya actually shows how his philosophy is distinct from the other philosophies, especially Advaita. So this last line, he's again making an argument that Advaita is refuted. How is Advaita refuted? Advaita says that when you reach perfection, when the jnana is revealed, you realize that there is only one entity. There are not, now we think that we are all different entities, right? You're a different person, I'm a different person, you're a different person. We're all different. So according to Advaita, or according to an interpretation of Advaita, there's only one entity called Brahma. And that Brahma is now thinking of itself as different entities. And when jnana comes, the jivatma who gets the jnana realizes I am that one Brahman, and all of them are actually me only. Okay? There's no different entity. So here Baladeva says that is not okay. And throughout his commentary, he says, he quotes one earlier shloka from the second chapter. In the second chapter, the 12th shloka, the second shloka that Bhagavan speaks in his discourse to Arjuna, after scolding him in the first one, he says that Natvam neme janadipaha. He says, Natvevaham natu jatunasam, Natvevaham jatunasam, Natvam neme janadipaha, Nachaivana bhavishyamaha, Sarve vayamatah param. That shloka is cited by several commentators to say that Advaita is not accepted. Why? Because it says that there was never a time, that second chapter shloka says, there was never a time when you did not exist, nor that I did not exist, nor all these kings did not exist, nor will ever be a time in the future when any of us will cease to exist. Which means that even after you get jnana, each of us will individually cease to exist. Right? That's how that is interpreted. And here he says that here also, in this particular shloka, the 5th chapter, 16th shloka, Tesham, the plural is used, bahutvam, bahuvachanam is used, right? It's not ekavachanam. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam, yesham nashitam atmanah, tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tat param. So even after getting the jnana, one keeps plurality in mind. The bahutvam, plurality remains intact. That is, we realize that, okay, I am an insignificant particle of dust in front of that Bhagavan. That Bhagavan is Bhagavan always, and I am the Jivatma always. I am a particle of dust at his lotus feet. And all the other Jivatmas are just like me. There are also other Jivatmas like me. I am not them, they are not me. So this is Advaita Khandana here in the last line. Tad Buddha, this is the last shloka for today. Tad buddhayaha tadatmanaha tan nishtaha tat parayanaha gachanti apunaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. You see, what happens in the Bhagavad-Gita, the Bhagavad-Gita actually is a book of bhakti. Its conclusion is in bhakti. Okay, if you skip all the chapters and go to the last end of the 18th chapter and see how the Gita concludes, the last few instructions that Sri Bhagavan gives to Arjuna before he stops speaking, you'll see that he's basically saying, become my bhakta. Forget about all that I've told you so far. Just become my bhakta. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha, he says. So you wonder why all these things was given after all that. And then if you think deeply, you realize that, okay, most people are not ready to accept that. And so you have to give some philosophy before. So a lot of philosophy is given, but eventually he concludes by saying, become my bhakta. So, but that's not the only place where he's talking about bhakti. Every now and then, he inserts and says, become a bhakta. Then that's the way to get mukti. First, he tells the importance for mukti, importance of why you should get mukti. And then points out that it's bhakti that gives you mukti. And so now, in these 4 shlokas, 3 shlokas we spoke about how jnana, and then the jivatma is, because of his abhiman, he is responsible, not the paramatma. So we spoke some intense Vedanta philosophy. And ultimately, he says, if you want to get mukti, tad buddhayaha tadatmanaha tan nishtaha tat parayana. Become a bhakta. So we'll see how Sri Vishwanatha explains this very nicely. He says, Kintu vidya jivatma jnanameva prakashayati natu paramatma jnanam bhaktyaham ekaya grahyaha iti bhagavad-uktehe. He says, this shloka is pointing out that by all the vidya that you have done, by doing karma yoga, by doing sadhana and all that, you have got vidya, and by that vidya, you have realized yourself. Okay, and you also understood that the jivatma, the paramatma is impartial, and he is not to be blamed. For all the suffering that I have gone through, it is not the paramatma who is to be blamed. Okay, but then, does it mean that you will get mukti? No. It says that only by bhakti, you will get mukti. Without bhakti, mukti is not possible. Bhaktya aham. So he's citing a shloka from the Bhagavatam. Bhaktya aham ekaya grahyaya. I can be understood only through bhakti. is tasmat paramatma jnanartham jnanibhirapi punar visheshato bhakti karya ityatah aha tad buddhaya iti. Tad buddhaya. The word tat here, purvopakranto vibhu paramrishyate. You can see here the word tat comes in 4 words. So in each of them, the word tat refers to him. It's also called in Vedanta philosophy, tat padartha refers to Vishnu, that supreme Brahman. Tasmin parameshware eva buddhi yesham te tan manana paraha ityartha. Those who are doing manana paraha means who are intently doing manan. Manan means contemplation, or putting their mind in that, reflecting upon. On whom? On that Vishnu. Buddhi. Their buddhi is on him. Tad atmanaha, tan manaskaha, tameva dhyayante. So when they meditate, what do they meditate? They meditate on Vishnu. Tan nishtaha, jnanam mayi sanyaset, iti Bhagavad-uktehe. Dehadi atirikta atmajnane api satvike nishtam parityajya tadeka nishtaha, tat parayanaha, tadiya shravana kirtana paraha. So he says, tan nishtaha means to realize that, okay, I have now got the jnana, I am clearly able to see that I am the self different from the body, and my mind has become very calm. I'm no longer driven by my material desires, or material attachments, etc. But even that does not mean I am liberated from material existence. I have not yet got mukti. Why? Because you have to give up that jnana also. Jnanam cha mayi sanyaset. You have to say that, yes, this is my platform of being in sattva. It's because of sattva guna that I am experiencing this jnana. Sattva guna gives this jnana. When sattva guna is very high, then that jnana, self-realization happens. But sattva guna is also binding. It's also one of the 3 material gunas. And therefore, sattva guna doesn't mean mukti. And so you have to give up that. How do you give it up? You do jnanam cha mayi sanyaset. In him, you have to offer it to him and say that I want to be your bhakta. Become his parayana. Devote yourself to him. Shravana kirtana paraha. Chant his names. Do his, hear about him. Like, the grantha like Bhagavatam, or different Puranas which talk about him. Tadiya Shravana Kirtana Paraha. Yad Vakshate Bhaktyamam Abhijanati. Even in the Bhagavad-gita it is said, Bhaktyamam Abhijanati. One knows me in truth through bhakti. Yavan Yaschashmi Tattvataha. If you want to know me exactly as I am, that's possible only through bhakti. This is from the 18th chapter, 55th shloka. Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha jnanena vidyaya eva purvameva dvasta samasta avidyaha. Paradeva says, Paramatmani avaishamyadi dhyayatam palamaha. So he's just adding to what Sri Vishwanatha said, saying that Paramatmani avaishamyadi dhyayatam palamaha. So one who's then contemplating on the Paramatma as not being partial, as impartial, and so on. What is the fruit of that? Tasmin tad avaishamyadike gunagane buddhihi nischayatmika yeshamte. Those intelligence is now accepted that it's not the Paramatma who is unkind, who is responsible for my difficulty. Tada atmanaha tasminna nivishta manasaha tan nishtaha tat tatparyavantaha. One who has come to this conclusion, tat parayanaha tat samashraya. Those who have taken his shelter. Evam abhyastena tad avaishamyadi gunajnanena nirdhuta kalmashaha vinashta tad vaimukyaha santaha apunaravritim muktim gachanti. So at that point of time, one who has taken his shelter and fully accepted that he is not responsible, he is very impartial, he is very kind, and who has realized that, such a person is ready for getting mukti and does not return back to this material existence. Okay, so practically, essentially, I thought we will summarize this because we're talking about now very deep Vedanta philosophy. So practically, what does it mean for us? We are just living in this world. We are sadhakas. So we have to contemplate on these things. So how do we do that? So simple ways to contemplate on this is by saying that let's not blame others when difficulties come to us, difficult situations come to us. It's natural for us. We have been brought up. I'm not blaming our parents, but I'm saying society in general thinks that way, that when something wrong happens, blame somebody else, right? Blame the director of the institute, or blame the president of the country. Always find somebody else to blame for one's own suffering. But now, when we do this sadhana, we don't blame another person. Instead, we take responsibility. Okay. We may see that, yes, in the immediate context, there is a cause. The cause might have been the director of the institute through whom that suffering came. But in the deeper background, it is not the director who actually is the cause of my suffering. Something that I have done has led to that situation. Accept responsibility for my current state and for my actions and consequences. So this whole idea that there is something called self-realization, the experience of that pure jnana, which these 4 shlokas are talking about, is a very inspiring goal. And the inspiring thought that this knowledge and happiness are already inside me. They're not something that I have to bring from outside. Okay, now for an MBA education, I have to spend money. So much money I have to give, and then it comes. But for this knowledge, I don't have to spend any money. I only have to practice self-restraint. Right? I have to hear the right scripture, which is available everywhere. And that knowledge I have to discover inside me, myself. And that is done by reducing my immersion in this external world, right? Through contemplation, through my lifestyle. In so many different ways, I can bring in a lifestyle which will make me closer to this. Then I'll become more eligible to experience my own inner nature. And this is actually inspiring to know that it is actually in my own hands. I can shape it, I can make it happen. And so the guiding thought for us as we go forward is how can we be more genuine, okay, to practice bhakti? Because bhakti is the root for all of this, especially in the Kali Yuga, when other forms of yoga are more difficult to practice, much more difficult to practice. Genuineness is something that we can sincerely try to practice. And nishkapata, genuineness, is the basis for bhakti, being 100% genuine, non cheating. Okay, not only about not cheating others, but cheating ourselves. So nishkapatan always. And this is the basis for practicing bhakti. So these are some practical implications of what we heard today in these 4 shlokas. So I will stop with this, and I know that you had some question to ask. Shanno mitrashram varunaha, shanno bhavatvaryama, shanna indro brihaspatihi, shanno vishnururkramaha, namo brahmane, namaste vayo, tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi, tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami, ritam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, tanmamavatu, tadvaktaramavatu, avatu mam, avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.